The war in Ukraine has entered a new phase, with the Donbas region now at the center of the conflict. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces have concentrated their efforts on this area, which has become a focal point of territorial disputes, military strategies and international negotiations. While Russia claims the Donbas as part of its territorial ambitions, Ukraine is determined to hold on to this crucial region, citing its importance for national security, resources and sovereignty. The ongoing battles in Donbas continue to claim lives and reshape the geopolitical landscape. The Donbas, which comprises the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts in eastern Ukraine, is slightly larger than Switzerland and accounts for just under 10% of Ukraine's total territory. This region has long been a point of contention, particularly since 2014, when Russia-backed separatists began fighting Ukrainian forces. Over the past decade, the Donbas has been the site of intense military clashes, with both sides suffering significant casualties. As of now, Russia controls roughly 80% of Donetsk and nearly the entire Luhansk oblast. However, the Ukrainian military still holds key cities like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, and its fortified positions make it difficult for Russian forces to achieve a full military victory. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has consistently rejected the idea of ceding any Ukrainian territory to Russia, including the Donbas. He has made it clear that the Ukrainian constitution prohibits such territorial concessions and has publicly stated that Russia's failure to conquer the Donbas region after more than a decade of fighting is a testament to Ukraine's resolve. Zelenskyy emphasizes that any peace agreement must respect Ukraine's sovereignty, particularly over its territorial integrity. Russia is still unsuccessful in the Donetsk region. Putin has been unable to take it for 12 years. And the constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible to give up territory or trade land, said Zelenskyy. Despite this stance, Russia has continued to press its claims over the Donbas. Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly justified his country's military involvement by citing the plight of the Russian-speaking minority in the region. Putin claims that the people in Donbas have suffered from constant shelling and a blockade imposed by Ukraine. He has used this argument to support Russia's intervention, framing it as a mission to protect ethnic Russians from Ukrainian aggression. We were aware of the unbearable conditions of constant shelling and blockade that the Donbas endured for 8 long years. They opposed the armed coup in Kyiv and fought back against the neo-Nazi dictatorship that wanted to tear them forever away from their historical homeland from Russia, Putin stated. The issue of the Donbas is further complicated by the region's economic importance. Donbas is known for its mining and industrial capabilities, with significant deposits of rare earth elements, including lithium and titanium, which are critical for the production of electronics and renewable energy technologies. Yulia Sviridenko, Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, has pointed out the strategic value of these resources. Being asked it is caught. Have information that, unfortunately, there is about €300 billion worth of these useful critical materials in the temporarily occupied territory. We understand that these are resources that the aggressor unfortunately has and will be used against us in this fight, Sviridenko said. This economic significance of the Donbas, combined with its geographical importance, has made the region a high-stakes battleground. Ukraine's military strategy has focused on fortifying key positions in the Donbas, particularly in cities like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, which serve as critical defensive points. The Ukrainian army has constructed a fortified belt across the region, stretching over 50 kilometers to impede Russian advances. Ukrainian soldiers, including those like Vitaly, have made it clear that ceding the Donbas to Russia would have devastating consequences for Ukraine's security. Vitaly, a soldier stationed in the region, warned, if we give territory to Russia now in 6 months or a year, they will gather more strength and advance further into Ukraine. These barbarians will not stop until they are stopped by force. For many Ukrainians, the Donbas represents not just a military or strategic objective, but also a matter of national pride and identity. Svetlana Sergeyevna Kushchenko, an evacuee from the Donbas, explained her decision to flee from the region, saying, "I decided to leave because our city is being shelled very often. I am sick. I am elderly. So fear made me decide to leave after all." This personal account highlights the human cost of the conflict, with civilians caught in the crossfire as both sides continue their military campaigns. The prospect of a ceasefire or peace agreement over the Donbas remains a topic of intense debate, both within Ukraine and internationally. Donald Trump, the US president, has proposed a ceasefire plan that would freeze the front lines as they currently stand, effectively recognizing Russia's territorial gains in the Donbas. Trump suggested that the fighting should end along the existing battle lines, with any future negotiations about borders left for later. Let it be cut the way it is. It's cut up right now. I think 78% of the land is already taken by Russia. You leave it the way it is right now. They can negotiate something later on down the line, but I said cut and stop at the battle line. Go home, stop fighting, stop killing people, Trump said. However, this proposal has been met with strong resistance from Ukraine, which sees any concession as a step toward further Russian encroachment. Ukrainian officials fear that ceding the Donbas would open the door for further territorial demands from Russia. So many soldiers have already been killed fighting in the Donbas. It would be wrong to give it up, said Elvis, a Ukrainian soldier stationed in the region. This sentiment reflects the broader frustration and fear felt by many in Ukraine that any compromise would lead to further Russian aggression. The human toll in the Donbas has been staggering. The region has seen some of the heaviest fighting of the war, with cities like Mariupol and Bakhmut suffering extensive damage. Aerial footage of Mariupol taken during a media trip organized by the Russian army shows the extent of the devastation, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. The destruction of infrastructure has displaced thousands of people, many of whom have fled to safer regions within Ukraine or abroad. As the fighting continues, the international community is divided on how to approach the conflict. Western nations, including the US and European Union, have condemned Russia's actions and provided significant military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. However, there are growing concerns about the long-term implications of the war. Some critics argue that a negotiated settlement, which might include some territorial concessions, is the only way to bring an end to the fighting and prevent further loss of life. In the meantime, both sides continue to dig in their positions. Russian forces have made some gains in the Donbas, but they have faced stiff resistance from Ukrainian troops. The fortified positions established by the Ukrainian military have made it difficult for Russian forces to advance. Cities like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, despite being in areas heavily contested by Russian forces, remain under Ukrainian control for now. The role of external actors, particularly Russia and the West, remains pivotal. Russian officials continue to frame the conflict as a struggle to protect ethnic Russians and Russian speakers in Ukraine, while the West has largely framed it as an issue of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Both sides continue to push their respective narratives with little room for compromise in the near term. The future of the Donbas is uncertain, but its importance to both Russia and Ukraine cannot be overstated. For Russia, control over the Donbas is a critical piece of its broader strategy to exert influence over Ukraine and prevent its integration into Western institutions like NATO and the European Union. For Ukraine, the Donbas is not just a region to be defended, it is a symbol of its independence and resistance to foreign aggression. As the war enters its second year, the fate of the Donbas region will continue to be a major factor in determining the future of the conflict. The ongoing battles are not only about territorial control, but also about the broader question of Ukraine's future as a sovereign nation. The resolution of the Donbas question will likely have far-reaching implications for the entire region and beyond. In conclusion, the Donbas remains one of the most contentious and strategically important areas in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Both sides have invested heavily in maintaining their positions in the region, and the humanitarian toll continues to rise. While a ceasefire agreement may be possible, it is clear that any resolution regarding the Donbas will require careful negotiation and likely entail difficult compromises. For now, the fighting continues, and the world watches as this critical region remains at the heart of the conflict.